Hey guys, it's Brett Burns with The Prepared Man. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of my many passions within the field of camping and woodsmanship. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sleep gear. I brought a mountain of sleep gear out here because I wanted to express the importance of making those right choices to really get the best experience when you're out there in the woods and you're out there doing your thing. So I wanted to start out with a quote from Morris Kohansky. He's a long-time idol in many people's mind when it comes to bushcraft survival and woodsmanship. Morris said that if you got a good night's sleep, you had it made. I agree with that 100% in that whether you're out there actually doing something, you're trying to survive, or you're out there just camping and enjoying time with your friends or family, it's very important to make sure you have the right gear and the right sleep setup so you can sleep comfortably. That starts with very basically your clothing. I always carry a couple of things that I've developed over time, and I've adapted and taken these things on as things that I always carry in my gear just to make my experience more positive. I always carry a change of socks that are just my sleeping socks. I always carry a spare t-shirt when I'm camping multi-day trips just so I can have that clean, dry feeling when I go to sleep. It's just one of those things that really improves my experience. Typically in the wintertime, I carry a pair of wool socks, either merino wool or a really nice heavy blended wool sock. I also really like boot socks like Carhartt's brand, as long as they have wool in them. I use wool because of that insulative value, regardless of dry or wet. And as you know, when you're out there, especially wearing heavy boots, you know that your feet will get wet over time. And it's just one of those things that I've adopted over time to carry extra in my sleeping gear. Your clothing is really the beginning of your sleeping gear, and having that good night's sleep all depends on what you're wearing. If you're out there in a pair of ball shorts and a t-shirt in the summertime, you're going to be hot, sticky, and nasty, but you're going to make it. In the wintertime, it's going to be awful. So dressing for the weather, wearing the right clothing at the right times really makes a big difference. Let's dive right in, and we're going to talk about some of my other comforts that I carry. Now, I wanted to pull this one out right away because you all know what this is. This is a USGI Poncho Liner. This is the actual government issue one. I know there are many off-brand and different types of interpretations of the Whoopee of the Poncho Liner, but this is a Woodland USGI Poncho Liner. I've carried one of these for, I don't know, it's so long that I can't count. I've got many of these, and recently I posted in several social media groups that this is the one item that if it's not there, I'm not going. I simply will not leave the house without a poncho liner, and it's one of those tools that I'll refer back to as we go through some of these other sleep systems and how it plays a part. But sitting around the fire, maybe just knocking the nip off in the morning or in the evening, the poncho liner is my tried and true favorite piece of gear. Using it as an underquilt in a hammock, which we'll talk about when we get to our hammock part of this basic camping series, the poncho liner is just so versatile. I always carry one. I would really like to try the Helicon Tex Swagman roll, and I'll probably pick one of those up this winter simply because of the weatherproof side of that. But for overall versatility, the poncho liner is the way to go. That, coupled with the fact that many of the ones that I own I picked up for $1 and $2 years and years ago at yard sales, and they're still going strong before the bushcraft craze drove them up to, $25-30 a piece. Poncho liner just can't be beat. The poncho liner is really, it's part of that versatile kit that I always carry, but it's also part of my sleep system. Down to 60 degrees, 55, 60 degrees, this piece of gear right here is my sleep gear. I'll throw this over me, I'll get a good night's sleep. I typically dress for the weather. That coupled with my good dry socks and some of these other basics and things that I'm going to show you in just a moment make me get a good night's sleep. They are machine washable. You can't tear them up, not unless you're just abusing them. I keep them away from the fire because they are nylon, but it's just one of those versatile pieces of kit that I use in all of my sleep systems. So you'll hear me refer back to it here in just a few moments. Once you get your shelter set, and we've already talked about shelters and looked at tarps, if you go the tent route, more power to you. I'm a tarp guy. Once you get your tarp set, you're really looking at keeping that moisture off the ground, off of you now. That's the next step. You don't want to be wet. You don't want to be wet when you're sleeping. I do that in a number of different ways. Part of my actual shelter kit includes that candle lantern that can rush out that perspiration from my breath. It just really gets rid of all that dampness, especially in the wintertime, or if you're sleeping under a layer of snow on top of your tarp. I really like a candle lantern. So I use that to get that humidity down, but I also use a membrane across the ground, or a ground sheet. Most people use a ground sheet. It may be a painter's cloth, it may be a canvas drop cloth, it may be a piece of oilskin, a tarp, a casualty blanket. If you're a hiker or some type, or a backpacker, you might be using Tyvek or some type of ultralight seal nylon. There are too many options to offer. The ones that I use right now currently is a grabber casualty blanket that I've used for a number of years. I have one that is at least 8 years old, and I'm actually currently using the Ultimate Survival Technology UST's casualty blanket that's available at big box stores and online as well, and I'll throw a link down below. It's just one of those tools that I've used at this point for so long that I've picked the ones that I like. I really like both of those. They're really tough. I know SOL also makes that tool, and it's just the SOL blanket. It just always felt a little too thin for me, so I never purchased those. But the casualty blanket is the membrane that I use. You can use any of those other options you want, including that trusty blue tarp. If you don't mind the crinkle, I mean, hey, they work great. In a pinch, I've used USGI ponchos, and many times I've picked a good location, used a browse bed, or build up something dry so I could then count on my sleep gear. The next piece of my sleep gear that I've chosen is a inflatable sleeping pad. Now, I know there are a lot of options out there. There are foam pads, there are textured foam pads, there are self-inflating pads. I know the government issue pads like the Thermarest, Ridge Rest, Trailblazer, and all of those different pads, they all work. It all comes down to comfort. The one that I personally find to be most comfortable is the Climate Static V, or the Static V Lux series. Now, this is a Static V. I've had this one for a number of years. We use it in most of our camping. I even took this to the hospital when my daughter was born and used it on one of those fold-out chairs, blew it up, had a good night's sleep, and the nurses made fun of me, but I was comfortable. So I really like this kit. You'll see that it's really small. If you look on the side, it weighs 18.1 ounces, if that matters to you, or 514 grams if you are using the metric system. It says, according to their little instructions here, that blows up in 10 to 15 breaths. Your mileage may vary. Mine's somewhere around 20 or 22. I haven't really counted it. It is good for side sleepers because it's not just a single large membrane that you're filling full of air. It is textured inside, and it has channels and baffles. So if you're a side sleeper, this one works well. Digging a pocket for your hip is not always feasible, and it's not always comfortable. So just keep that in mind. This is built for side sleepers as well, and I get really good mileage out of it. In the wintertime, if I'm carrying a modular sleep system, I'll slip this down in the bivvy. Any other time I'm using a blanket, I'll just lay on top of it. It doesn't seem to get away from me too bad. I will caution against overinflating these. Only inflate them enough so you are comfortable. Don't worry about getting them super tight, because the more you inflate them, you're sleeping on a beach ball sooner or later, and they will get away from you. Anything that's inflatable will. They sell an insulated version. This one has an R value of 1.3. The insulated version's a little bit better, but I really haven't ran into that issue. This is my choice currently. They're sub $50 anywhere you look. They're on sale at least twice a year. I caught these on sale. My friends have all caught them on sale. They make larger models. They make doubles. They make hammock models with wings. They make a lot of different models. I use this one in a hammock, on the bed, in the hospital, in a convertible chair, on the ground. This is my sleeping pad. So that's another big part of my kit. The last thing I'd like to say, and you notice the size of it, it's small enough that it fits inside my pack and isn't strapped onto my pack, which is my personal preference. I don't like to strap junk and have junk hanging off my pack. So that's me. Let's talk about our next modern equivalent, the modular sleep system. And I already have mine separated to go into my fall bag and into my early winter bag. And the reason that I have it separated and I left it separated for this discussion was to talk about its flexibility. Now, this is the Tenier Industries modular sleep system. It's 3 pieces. I think when they advertise it as 4 or 5 pieces. It comes because of the compression sacks. It comes with this green patrol bag. It also has the black intermediate bag, which I have paired here with the bivy. You can set all 3 of them up, and I think you can get down to -30, -40. I don't remember. But I've slept in this down to single digits in the driving rain, driving snow, hail, high wind, slept like a baby. It's this bivy is waterproof. Mine is, oh gosh, 7, 8, 9 years old now that I've had it. And these were produced in the early 2000s, so this could be 20 years old, and it still works perfect. It is Gore-Tex, so as long as you keep the bags themselves dry, you're very warm. They are nylon polyfill bags, so if they get wet, they're going to lose their insulation value. But this bivy is really the core of the system. I've got mine compressed with a piece of paracord here, and if I stand up and I just unlace this really quick, you can see it's just to give it some compression so I can get it down in the mouth of my pack. Most of your modern packs are not built to stuff this bigger sleeping bag system in. But you can see, if I stand up with this, this is my pack. As you take a look at it here, you've got just the woodland camo. It's got a big zipper and snaps down the side. They are 2-sided snaps that allow you to snap the packs together, or the bags together rather, the intermediate bag and the patrol bag. I just usually keep mine in components unless I'm winter camping. I actually already have one set up that's just the full kit put together. This was one of my first modern bushcraft purchases back in the day, and I remember I used to just roll it out and take a look at it every once in a while. I literally loved this bag. So you won't go wrong with the MSS. They are heavy. They weigh 11 pounds. People say they can compress them down to a cubic foot. I have never been able to accomplish that. And I've went so far as to follow guides and had people show me how they claimed it worked, and what they called a cubic foot was about a 1 foot by 2 foot by 1 foot. So that's not a cubic foot. So they are big, they are bulky, they are heavy, they are bomb proof as long as you keep them dry. Usually when I go into a camp, especially a winter camp, I'll roll it out, allow it to loft up like it is right now. I'll take the head side, which is the only opening on the bivy. I keep the bivy zipped up until I want to get in it, and I'll actually fold these together and roll them down on top of each other so they'll shed water. And I think when we went to Campcraft Outdoors and participated in the Survival Adventure Network Challenge there, it rained off and on all day on top of my MSS. I flipped all that nastiness off of it and slept like a baby that night. So MSS, great piece of kit. Let's talk about my next modern equivalent, which is our next step up is the alpaca wool blanket. This one I've had for a number of years. I actually traded it off a friend of mine. These alpaca wool blankets, they come from a website online I won't get into, but alpaca wool is a lot softer, and I found it to be a lot warmer than modern wool products. This one is 100% wool, and it's not repurposed. It's virgin wool. It's heavy. I mean, it weighs, I don't know, 4.5 pounds, something like that, maybe 5 pounds. But that's a queen-sized wool blanket that I've had soaking wet. I've had the corners frozen to the ground, picked it up, dusted it off, wrapped up in it, and made it through the night. I love wool blankets. I love the way they smell. I love just the durability of a wool blanket. So most of the time, I'm attempting a wool blanket. My last camp with only wool, I camped with a wool watch coat. capot and this vintage wool blanket that I'm going to show you in just a moment. And it got down to 18 degrees that night. I paid no attention to it. I didn't notice at all. Now, this is a USGI wool blanket. This is the one out of my truck. That is the only thing they are suitable for. As you can see, this one's got a few holes in it. I'm not going to take good care of them because this is for survival purposes only. They are horrible. I know a lot of people have a lot of experience with them. This is probably the softest one that I own, and it is so unpleasant that I find myself waking up unless I take that poncho liner and put it underneath it. Like I said, I am a side sleeper, so I can cover myself with one of these. Laying on my back, I'm constantly out from under one of these. They're smaller than a twin. So this is a very small, this is an old wool blanket. Let's see what the tag says on this one. 4/16/42. So post World War II, Korean War era wool. I don't like them. Got a lot of them. Don't like them. Now this one is a little bit of a different story. This wool blanket travels with me a lot, and you've seen it in other videos. This is a World War II Navy blanket. It says U.S. Navy on it, as you can see, and it's actually stitched in it. Come on, Jack. And it is a wool product as well. It's got a nice broad stripe on it. I use this even in my 18th century gear, simply as a shard or as an accessory blanket. It's about a twin. I love this blanket. I only have the one of them, so I'm kind of careful with that one. That wool blanket will get me through the night in most temperatures above freezing. I would not want to camp below freezing with this small blanket and nothing else. Now, my poncho liner would go with me. It would go underneath it as loft or trapped air, which is what we're going to talk about after we go through these products. And I could make it through the night. This typically lives with this vintage wool blanket. This will go on top of my sleeping pad, and I'll actually lay it sideways and flip it over between my legs in the night to trap some additional air around the backs of my legs and around my thighs and kidneys. So this is my last blanket that I wanted to show you guys. This is my favorite blanket that I own. This is my vintage Hudson Bay queen size blanket. This blanket has been through it. It's an original actual Hudson Bay blanket. It's a 4-point, so that puts it somewhere between a double and a queen. It's a nice blanket. Vintage wool blankets are significantly thicker. They have better loft, and they're just a better product than modern wool blankets I've found. Water resistant to a point. It will shed water because of the lanolins in the wool. Very warm, and it's drop dead gorgeous. I love this wool blanket. If we got anywhere below 20 degrees, all of these wool blankets, as far as I'm concerned, can stay at home. I like them. I love the way they look. I love the feel. They make my camp look the way I want my camp to look. Functionally, they can't keep me warm enough alone. That's where the additional accessories come in. My poncho liner that always goes with me. There's one in the bottom of my Alice right now. There's one in my ILBE. There's one in all of my packs. Now, this additional loft or this trapped air will gain my body heat. This insulated value will keep my body heat and keep me warm in the night. There's always going to be a campfire. I don't care, even if I'm camping in the summer, there will be a campfire if I'm going. So that campfire heat also really helps. And building clever and intelligent campfires is really where it's at in supporting yourself in the woods. The idea of packing for comfort versus looks is always a dominant one in my mind. If one of these blankets was hot pink, but it kept me warm, it would be going with me. I have a pink wool blanket that my wife uses, and by George, if it was the warmest one I had, that would be the one that I swore by. Don't adhere yourself to what modern camping says is cool. Find what you need, what suits you, and what allows you to do what you do, the camping style that you do, and move forward. If you're a car camper, grab you some comforters, a nice down comforter, and take it with you to be comfortable. If you're an ultralight backpacker, you're limited by the weight that you're carrying. So I would suggest looking at your settings and your time of year before you go out there. Don't push yourself to try to make it with a bed sheet. It's just not going to happen. If you camp like I do, if you have some type of portage, something to carry your equipment, a horse, four-wheeler, whatever it may be, you're going to be a lot more comfortable because you can carry what you need. If you have a trailer that you're packing your stuff in, you can carry what you need. If you're packing in, like I often do, look at tried and true methods. The percentage of your pack weight may be heavy on your sleep gear, especially if you're by yourself. I would have no trouble in any weather, throwing this MSS complete at 11 pounds in my pack. A 32 ounce of Nalgene, maybe a titanium cup, and just a few other pieces, and sleep comfortably anywhere. Even in heavy driving rain with a USGI poncho or my light emergency tarp just over my face, because I don't have to worry about my legs and my feet getting wet. And a 5x7 tarp is going to cover my whole body anyway. I can really modify my kit and depend on my gear that I have. I really, really, really like the MSS. I've woken up in standing water in the MSS, and it is my modern camping gear go-to. Now, wool blankets, nothing beats that ambiance of having a wool blanket in camp. I carry them a lot, but especially this time of year, it's fair weather 99% of the time. I have no problem carrying those wool blankets. January rolls around and it's 18 degrees, 14 degrees, the MSS is coming. More than likely, realistically, at 36 years old, I'm staying home. If you don't go out in bad weather, there's no reason. You have nothing to prove. But if you are one of those people that enjoy camping in storms and bad weather, make sure you have gear that can endure. Make sure your sleep gear does what you need it to do. So, guys, that wraps it up for me. I'm Brett Burns with The Prepared Man. Get out there, be productive, and be prepared.